to JForrest English Training. I'm Jennifer, and today you're going to learn English through stories. We're going to review 4 different news articles, and through this review, you're going to learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, advanced grammar, and even correct pronunciation. Let's get started. As you can imagine, we're talking about Twitter today. So let me read the headline for you. Elon Musk is said to have ordered job cuts across Twitter. Now let's clarify job cuts because this is very important for the article. Job cuts, this means job reductions. When you cut jobs, you reduce the number of jobs. So here, the word cut is being used as a verb, to cut, but we're not talking about scissors with paper. In this context of job cuts, cut means reduction. Cuts. So we use this specifically with jobs. Job cuts. We can also use this with finances. You hear this a lot with the government. They might talk about budget cuts, which means reductions. They're reducing the amount of money available, budget cuts. You can hear that in government, but you can also hear it in the private sector. They might have budget cuts, so you don't get a bonus that year. So job cuts, reduction. And as an example sentence, you might say, my company cut jobs this year. You can include a number. You can say, my company cut 500 jobs this year, for example. Or the company might say, we need to cut jobs by 10%. Or you can have a specific number by 500 individual jobs. So those are some example sentences you'll likely see. Let's move on. Elon Musk, who, if you didn't know, is the owner of Twitter. He recently purchased Twitter. Oh, I think it says that in the article. We'll soon find out. Elon Musk planned to begin laying off workers at Twitter as soon as Saturday. 4 people with knowledge of the matter said, with some managers being asked to draw up lists of employees to cut. Okay, we already know what this is, employees to cut. So we know that those employees, their job is going to be eliminated because they need to reduce the number of jobs. Now, to draw up lists, you might be thinking of the verb draw a picture. But notice this isn't just the verb draw. What is this? Because we have draw up. So if we have a verb and a preposition up, on, in, then we know it's a phrasal verb. And phrasal verbs have different meanings from the regular verb. So to draw up in this context, to draw up lists, when you draw up lists, it simply is another way of saying prepare. But we use this phrasal verb to draw up in the context of legal or business contracts, documents, proposals. So for example, if you are offered a job with a company, they're going to have a contract between you and the company, and that is a legal contract or a business contract. Now, they're going to draw up the contract, which simply means prepare. And if you are starting a new project and you have this proposal, you can draw up the proposal, which just means prepare. So we use this phrasal verb in this specific context. And remember, it simply means prepare. So as an example sentence, we can say, HR is the HR department. HR is drawing up the contract
as we speak. So they're in the process of drawing up the contract. So you might ask, hey, do you know when the contract will be ready? And they're saying, oh, they're just drawing it up, which means they're just preparing it now. Let's see, anything else from here? Oh, yes. I wanted to talk about layoffs, because if we're talking about job cuts, well, then job cuts, layoffs, they go hand in hand, because if you have job cuts, it means you need to reduce the number of employees. Now, you can do that, you can accomplish that objective by laying off workers, okay? So when you lay someone off, you end their employment. You permanently end their employment. But it's very different from being fired. When you're fired, you also end your employment, but it's because of your performance. You were not performing very well. You were not meeting the objectives. You were basically a bad employee. But when you're laid off, it's because of operational reasons. They might not be able to afford you anymore, or they're no longer selling the product that you were in charge of. So your position does not exist anymore. So to lay someone off, this is to permanently end one's employment because of operational reasons. So again, like I said, they might not be able to afford you, or simply the direction of the company has changed. So as an example sentence, you can say, I got laid off. Or you can say, I was laid off. So you can use to be laid off. This is the passive form of the verb to lay someone off. So the active form is to lay someone off. But you as the employee are receiving the action. Your company is doing the action. So my company laid me off. This is the past simple of the verb lay. This is the active. And the passive is I was laid off by my company. Passive. So you're receiving the action, which is why it's very common to use this in the passive form. I was laid off. Now, my original example, I said get laid off. I got laid off. We can use the verb get just to talk about that transition. I got sick is that transition from not sick to sick. So I got laid off is the transition from not laid off to laid off. But to start, get is a more advanced verb in English. So to start, you can simply use the verb to be. Let's move on. Mr. Musk, who completed a $44 billion deal to buy Twitter on Thursday, has ordered the cuts across the company, with some teams to be trimmed more than others, said 3 of the people who declined to be identified for fear of retaliation. Okay, so notice here, we're using cuts again. And what are cuts? Reductions. Reductions in this case, the number of employees. But I want you to look at this and think, what is this? Is this a subject, an adjective, an adverb, a verb, a noun? What is this? What part of speech is this? And how does it differ? Because here, you'll notice above, we were looking at the verb. We know it's a verb because it's conjugated. It's used next to a subject. And in this case, it's the infinitive. But what do we have here? An article, which tells me it's not a verb. This is a noun. So this is talking about it as a something. The cuts, the job cuts. It's a something. So this is a noun, and it's very commonly used as the noun form. The cuts. Notice how it's in plural because it's more than one. Technically, you could use it in the singular and say, we cut one job. There was a job cut. A job cut, that's a something. There was one job cut at our company. So this is a noun. Has ordered, our verb here is ordered, has ordered the cuts across the company. So here, I mentioned that Elon Musk purchased Twitter. Well, he did it for $44 billion. Maybe a good deal, maybe not. I don't really know. All right. Let's move on here. The scale of the layoffs could not be determined. Twitter has around 7,500 employees. All right, the same thing we saw before with to cut and cuts, verb and noun. We saw to lay off is the verb, commonly used in the passive form, to be laid off. But here, what is this? The part I have highlighted, what part of speech is this? Well, it should be easy for you. It's a noun, a noun. The scale of the layoffs. So we're just talking about the layoffs. So those are the positions that are permanently eliminated because of operational reasons. And the scale is just talking about how big is it? Is it big? Is it small? That would be the scale. And they're saying it could not be determined, which is a formal way of saying they don't know. They don't know what the scale is. So will there be a lot of layoffs, a lot of cuts, or a small number of layoffs, a small number of cuts? Now notice how I pronounce this. I said 7,500 employees. The plural is on my S here, on my noun, employees. We add that S because there's more than one. There's 7,500. 7,500. You could also say 7,500. 7,500. The choice is yours. 7,500 or 7,500. Both of them are correct, commonly used. You can choose which one you'd like to use. Let's move on. Reports of layoffs at Twitter have swirled since Mr. Musk agreed to buy the company in April. The billionaire, who also leads the electric car maker Tesla and the rocket company SpaceX, has told investors that he would take Twitter private, reduce its workforce, roll back its content moderation rules, and find new revenue streams. So here we have reports of layoffs. Is this a noun or a verb? Reports of something. It's a noun. Another way you can tell it's a noun is because it's one word. As a verb, it is two words. You have to lay is your verb, and off is the preposition. To lay someone off. So this is the verb. Okay. So again, they're talking because of the cuts, the job cuts, because of the layoffs, it's just natural that you're going to reduce the workforce. The workforce is the total number of people in a company, or you could talk about the workforce of a city, a country, an industry. So Twitter had 7,500 or 7,500 people. So you could say that's its workforce. The layoffs at Twitter would take place before a November 1st date when employees were scheduled to receive stock grants as part of their compensation. Such grants typically represent a significant portion of employees' pay. By laying off workers before that date, Mr. Musk may avoid paying the grants, though he is supposed to pay the employees cash in place of their stock under the terms of their merger agreement. So again, we see our layoffs. This is being used as a noun. It's our subject actually in this sentence. The layoffs at Twitter. Take place is a great expression that just means happen. The layoffs would happen, take place. So that's just a more casual way of saying happen, but it's very commonly used. By laying off workers. So is this a noun or a verb? Laying off workers. This is a verb, and what conjugation is this verb in? This is our gerund verb, and we know that because it has the ing, and it's in the gerund verb because, do you know why? Because of this word right here, by. By is a preposition, so we have preposition plus gerund. That's our sentence structure. Preposition plus gerund. By laying off workers before that date. And that is the end of our article. So you learned a lot of very useful business English vocabulary, grammar. We talked a lot about nouns and verbs and changing between active and passive. So make sure you try some of these new expressions in the comment section below, and feel free to go through this article again. And if you have any questions, you can just leave it in the comment section as well.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
Let me read the headline. Elon Musk says he will resign as Twitter CEO after securing successor. Now let me read the sub-headline. So this is the main headline, and then we have a sub-headline, which is designed to give you a little more information about the topic. The billionaire posted a poll over the weekend asking Twitter users if he should step down. The majority voted yes. All right, going back to our headline. Resign. This is very important to the topic of the article. So to resign, this is a verb, and this is a way of saying that you quit. You voluntarily leave your position. It's just a more formal way of saying that. Let me write this for you. So it is to voluntarily, which means you chose to. Nobody said you must leave your job. That means you're fired. When you say, I don't want to work here anymore, that means you quit, or again, more formally, resign. To voluntarily leave your employment, your position. So in this case, his position as CEO, which is of course an acronym for Chief Executive Officer, which is the top ranking position in a company. Now notice here grammatically, we have the word after, which is a preposition. Now what do you notice right here? We have our gerund verb. Secure, to secure, that's the base verb, to secure. And because, to secure, this is the base. Now, because I have after, which is a preposition, my verb that follows must be in the gerund form, which is the ing form. To secure in this context is a more formal way of saying find, to find a successor. Now, what is a successor? Already we've reviewed a lot in this headline here. A successor, hopefully you can understand based on context, which is why reviewing articles is so helpful, because based on the context, well, the successor is the person who will replace Elon Musk as CEO. So it's the person who comes after you as a leader. So you have old leader. So leader in the sense of a employment within the company. It could be a boss, a manager, a supervisor, or it could be a politician, a president, a prime minister. So you have your old leader and the new leader. And the new leader is the successor. I'll put it up here. And the old leader is the predecessor. I don't think you need to worry about it too much, but successor is more common. All right. So that's the headline here. So basically, Elon Musk is leaving his position. He's resigning, but they need to find someone new, the person who will act as CEO, and that's the successor. The billionaire posted a poll over the weekend asking Twitter users if he should step down. The majority voted yes. All right, let's look at this. This is a nice phrasal verb, to step down. Now, again, based on the context, he's going to resign, leave his position, quit. They all mean the same thing. So step down is the phrasal verb to mean resign from a position. So to voluntarily leave a position. Now notice I included title. Title could be, for example, the coach of a sports team or the leader of a community organization. And maybe in that case, the leader of a community organization, maybe you're the leader of your church group or just a community group, and you don't get paid for that. It's just a volunteer position, but you could still step down. You could leave it. So I want to show you the grammar here because we would say Elon Musk stepped down, assuming it's complete, past simple, step down as CEO. So we use the preposition as, and then we state the title as CEO, as manager, as captain of a sports team, for example, as the leader. So you can have the title there. So in our case, it's CEO. Stepped down. This is our phrasal verb conjugated, plus our preposition, and then we have as job title. Let's continue on. Elon Musk on Tuesday claimed he will resign as CEO of Twitter once he has found a replacement. Now, what's the alternative word for replacement? The one we learned right here in the headline, successor. So they're saying the exact same thing as this headline. They're just choosing to use different vocabulary because we have resign. Well, we used that before. And now we have replacement instead of successor. So you could say here, successor. And remember, once a successor has been appointed, Elon Musk will be the predecessor, the person who previously had the position. So replacement can be successor. Okay, let's continue on. So notice it's in a quote, which means these words are coming from Elon Musk's mouth. He said these words. I will resign as CEO as soon as I find someone foolish enough to take the job. After that, I will just run the software and servers teams, the billionaire tweeted. Okay, so he tweeted this, but it's still coming from him directly. In this case, it's coming from his fingers instead of his mouth, but it's still a quote because it's reporting what he said. So resign as, notice we're using the preposition as with the job title as well. Now take the job. This is the same as finding a replacement, finding a successor. So again, it's just a different way to say the same thing. Notice how he says foolish enough. Foolish. When we describe something as foolish, this is a negative adjective because foolish means unwise, stupid, or not showing good judgment. So this is a negative adjective. So Elon Musk is saying that it isn't a wise decision to become my successor, to take over as CEO. You could say, it was foolish of me to step down as captain. It was foolish of me. It was unwise, stupid. It didn't show good judgment. So it's a way of saying I regret my decision. Now, a lot of students have this fear of speaking because they think that they're going to sound foolish or look foolish. I'm afraid of looking foolish when I speak, which means you're afraid of looking stupid, to be honest, of people judging you negatively because if you use the wrong vocabulary or your pronunciation isn't very good, then it could look negative, right? Now, this is a fear that a lot of students have. I'm afraid of looking foolish when I speak. So a very common adjective, but remember, it is very negative as well. All right, let's continue on. After that, I will just run the software and servers teams, the billionaire tweeted. So the verb run in this context, and this is what's important about learning with the news because you understand the context. Because if you just see the word run, well, does it mean to run? Or does it mean run the software team? Which is another way of saying leading, to just lead, to match the verb tense, to just lead, manage the software and servers teams. So you could say, I ran the marketing team for five years. Now notice my verb is in the past simple, right? Run, ran, run. If I say, I've run the marketing team for 5 years, what's the difference between I ran the marketing team and I've run the marketing team? Well, of course, it's our verb tense because this is the past simple, which means it's a completed action. I no longer do this action. Let me make this a little bit smaller. I no longer do this. It's complete. It's in the past. But if I say I've run the marketing team for 5 years, this is the present continuous. Sorry, the present perfect. Present perfect. And it means this is an action that started in the past but continues until now. So today, I run the marketing team. The action is still in progress, but I use the present perfect simply to show that it started in the past. I see lots of mistakes with these two verb tenses, so pay attention to this part of the lesson. Let's continue on. On Sunday, Musk posted a poll on the social media platform asking users if he should step down as its head. and said he would abide by the results. So we already learned this phrasal verb to step down, to voluntarily leave the position. Again, the same as resign or quit. Resign is more formal. And as its head. So head of means the leader. We use the word head to mean the leader, the boss, the CEO, the head. Its is Twitter. They're talking about the company Twitter. Okay. Now, abide by. This is a phrasal verb because we have the verb to abide and then we have the preposition by. And this simply means to follow the rules, or regulations. When you travel in a foreign country, you must abide by its rules. It being the country you're traveling to. So if you go to the US, you have to follow the traffic rules and all the other rules and regulations. You have to abide by, so to follow. Abide by, it's a more formal phrasal verb. We tend to use it with rules and regulations from the government or from a large company as a whole. So basically, Musk said that he will follow the results of the poll. So if the majority say you should leave, then he will follow that, abide by that, and leave his position. He will resign and find a successor, a replacement, which will make Musk the predecessor, the old leader of the position. More than 17.5 million votes were cast. Did you vote? I didn't vote because I didn't know about this. I don't really use Twitter. Do you use Twitter? What do you think? Should Elon Musk resign as CEO? Share your opinion in the comments below. So you cast a vote. That's just the verb we use, to cast. This is pretty specific to voting. But if you want to talk about voting, then you can use this, to cast a vote. A majority, 57.5, voted yes. So of course, majority is just plus 50%, right? Plus 50%. So 50.5% or more, that's the majority. If it's 50-50, well then there isn't a majority. It's even. But the second it becomes 50.5, then that is a majority. I'm sure you know what a majority means, but it is useful to have in your vocabulary. So let me give you an example of how we commonly use it. The majority of people voted yes. The majority of employees want to work from home. So you can use the majority of, and then you have your noun. You have a plural noun. People is plural. Person is one. One person, two people. People is plural. Employees has an S, so it's plural. Because if it's the majority, the noun has to be more than one. So that's our sentence structure. I need more space. The majority of, and then you need a plural noun. And then after that, you can have many different verb tenses depending on the sentence structure. So that can be flexible, but you want a plural noun with this. Okay, so that's a useful sentence structure for you. Shortly after, what did we learn about after already? What is it? A preposition. So we need our verb in ing. Shortly after posting the poll, Musk had said he did not have anyone lined up to take over. All right. So, lined up. This is a way of saying that someone is ready and available for the position. Okay, it's a phrasal verb to line up. Now, this is the difficult part, I will say, about vocabulary and especially phrasal verbs. They have more than one meaning depending on context. So to line up is when you get in a row of people. To line up. The people lined up at the entrance. But in this case, to line someone up means to have somebody ready, able, prepared, available to do something. Okay, so you might say, we use this a lot in a work context. Do you have anyone lined up to present? So this is what they're going to do, present. So do you have anyone ready, available to present? That would be how I would translate it. Do you have anyone ready to present? Do you have anyone available to present? You could also say, we have a great presenter lined up. Okay? So we have a great presenter ready. We have a great presenter available. We have a great presenter lined up. Musk had said he does not have anyone ready to become CEO. To take over is, so Musk has the position now. To take over is when someone else becomes the CEO. So to take responsibility for something. And in this case, it's the position. To take responsibility. We commonly use this in a employment situation, but you could say, can you take over this project while I'm on vacation? Which means, can you take responsibility while I'm on vacation? All right, let's continue on. Musk appointed himself CEO less than 2 months ago. I didn't know that. Only 2 months he's been in the position. Shortly after finalizing his $44 billion takeover of Twitter at the end of October, that's a lot of zeros, 44 billion. He immediately dissolved the company's board of directors, fired top executives, and laid off around half the company's workforce. I created another lesson specifically on Learn English with the News, talking about Elon Musk becoming CEO of Twitter, and I reviewed some of the vocabulary right here. So I'm going to leave a link to that lesson in the description, and you can learn more of this vocabulary in that separate lesson. I don't want to explain it again. All right, let's continue on. Since then, the self-avowed free speech absolutist has made a long list of erratic changes to the company's policies, including those pertaining to content moderation, suspended users, and promotion of competitors. Let me explain this adjective. I think it's quite useful. Erratic. We use it enough. Now, this means, okay, erratic is an adjective, and it is moving or behaving in a way that is not regular, certain, or expected. So again, it's more of a negative adjective. We use it to describe one's behavior or actions in a negative way. So you could say, my boss is very erratic. Yesterday, he hired a marketing firm, and today he fired them. So one day he wants them. Yeah, they're great. Let's hire this marketing team. But then the next day, after one day, he fired them. So yes, no, yes, no. It's not the way you would expect him to behave. So his decision making can change very frequently. You can describe that person as erratic. We often use this in specifically for driving. My husband is an erratic driver. In this case, it might mean, if you're driving on the highway, you expect the behavior to be certain, expected, you're going to go straight, right? But erratic would be, you go this way and then you speed up and then you slow down and you change lanes and then you change lanes and then you drive slow, you drive fast. So it's constantly changing. It's not what you would expect a driver to do. So we use that a lot with driving, traffic. The traffic was very erratic. It was very busy 1 second and then no traffic and then traffic and then no traffic. So it kept changing. So when something changes a lot, decision making for behavior, we do it a lot with decision making. Then you can describe that person or that action like driving as erratic, which is the adjective. Okay, let's continue on. He has repeatedly made and then reversed decisions seemingly on personal whims and enacted major changes on the platform based on yes or no Twitter polls. Like right now, he's basing his decision to stay as CEO or leave as CEO, step down as CEO based on this poll. Maybe you could say that's very erratic. Only 2 months ago, he became the CEO. He paid $44 billion and now he's stepping down as CEO. That could be described as erratic. I really like this, a whim, on personal whims. Let me explain what this means. This is an idiom, on a whim. Now, this means, so a whim, this is a whim, a sudden wish or idea, especially one that cannot be reasonably explained. And we often use this in, well, let me give you an example sentence. I quit my job on a whim. On a whim. We don't commonly use it with personal. I don't see this quite a lot because whims are personal. So I don't think it adds anything to say personal because that's generally where they come from, yourself. So I don't think that word is needed. You can get rid of it. And notice, on a whim. Now, they have on, they don't use the article a. Do you know why in this example? Because whims is plural. So you don't use the article a if there's a plural, but it's more commonly used like this, on a whim. So I recommend adding it like this. So we use it, you do an action, I quit my job. Now, if you want to suggest that you didn't think about it very much and you can't even really explain why you quit, it's like, I just had this feeling. I was at work and I decided suddenly. I can't even tell you why. I don't have a good decision. I quit my job on a whim. Some might consider that a good thing. Some might consider that a bad thing. It depends on your preferences, I guess. For me, to be honest, I tend to travel on a whim. So I could say I booked a trip to Germany on a whim. I don't generally think too much about the trips I take. It's just one day I decide I want to go to Germany and the next day I book a ticket. So I tend to do that on a whim. So what about you? Do you do things on a whim, more impulsively? Or are you the type of person that really thinks things through? I'm sure it depends. It depends on the situation, right? Maybe there are some things you would do on a whim. For example, let's say, okay, so I have long hair. Let's say one day I wake up and I say, I want to cut my hair to here. And I get my hair cut. And then someone could say, wow, oh my gosh, you cut your hair. And I could say, yeah, I did it on a whim. So I didn't think about it too much. I had the idea, I want to cut my hair, and I did it on a whim. So I think it's a really great expression. So remember, you do an action and then you can add on a whim. Try one in the comment section. Try an example. Okay, finally, last week, he attracted enormous backlash after Twitter suddenly and without explanation suspended several prominent tech journalists who had reported on him. He later accused them of effectively sharing his assassination coordinates by reporting on a Twitter account that tracked his private plane's flights. All right, an assassination is when someone murders someone and it was planned. Like President JFK was assassinated. He was murdered and somebody planned that. So Elon Musk is saying that this journalist gave his flight plan. So basically, they posted Elon Musk is going to be in Germany on this date at this time. So if somebody wanted to attack Elon Musk and kill him, well, now they know where he's going to be, when he's going to be there. So it would be easy to plan that. So that's what it means by assassination coordinates. I'm just explaining that because you're probably curious. All right, so that is our article. You learned a lot from this article. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the article from start to finish so you can focus on my pronunciation and you can imitate my pronunciation. Elon Musk says he will resign as Twitter CEO after securing successor. The billionaire posted a poll over the weekend asking Twitter users if he should step down. The majority voted yes. Elon Musk on Tuesday claimed he will resign as CEO of Twitter once he has found a replacement. I will resign as CEO as soon as I find someone foolish enough to take the job. After that, I will just run the software and servers teams, the billionaire tweeted. On Sunday, Musk posted a poll on the social media platform asking users if he should step down as its head, and said he would abide by the results. More than 17.5 million votes were cast. A majority, 57.5%, voted yes. Shortly after posting the poll, Musk had said he did not have anyone lined up to take over. No one wants the job who can actually keep Twitter alive. There is no successor, he tweeted. Musk appointed himself CEO less than 2 months ago, shortly after finalizing his $44 billion takeover of Twitter at the end of October. He immediately dissolved the company's board of directors, fired top executives, and laid off around half the company's workforce. Since then, the self-avowed free speech absolutist has made a long list of erratic changes to the company's policies, including those pertaining to content moderation, suspended users, and promotion of competitors. He has recently made and then reversed decisions, seemingly on personal whims, and enacted major changes on the platform based on yes or no Twitter polls. Last week, he attracted enormous backlash after Twitter suddenly and without explanation suspended several prominent tech journalists who had reported on him. He later accused them of effectively sharing his assassination coordinates by reporting on a Twitter account that tracked his private plane's flights.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
You probably recognize these two celebrities, Will Smith and Chris Rock. Let me read the headline of our article. Will Smith says bottled rage led him to slap Chris Rock at the Oscars. So this is very important to understand our article. So slap. This is slap. It's a verb, to slap. It's very commonly associated with violence, so in a negative way. However, you could slap a mosquito or a fly on your arm, for example. So you can use it in other contexts, but more commonly used in violence, fighting between two people. Okay, let me explain this because I believe this is mentioned again. Bottled rage. Bottled rage. So rage, of course, is an emotion. It means to be very, 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 very angry. Okay, that's rage. Now, what does bottled rage mean? Bottled. Imagine here we have a bottle, right? And the water is in the bottle and it can't get out, right? So if you have a bottled emotion, rage, anger, jealousy, hatred, generally a negative emotion, it means that emotion is inside of you and can't get out, just like the water can't get out of this bottle. So it's when you have an emotion and you do not express it, you keep it inside of you. So if you keep anger, rage, jealousy, hatred inside of you, eventually it can come out and you might do something violent like slap someone. Let's continue on. Will Smith has said his bottled rage led him to slap comedian Chris Rock, here's our comedian Chris Rock, on stage at the Oscars in March. The actor has been interviewed for the first time since the incident, which he described as a horrific night. Horrific, this is a great adjective. A lot of times students will use very common adjectives, good, bad, because it's the ones they know. But adding more advanced adjectives will make your English sound more advanced and will give you more color to your language as well. A horrific night. So this is a very, very, very bad night. That's how you can think of it. A very, very bad night. So if somebody asks you, how was your day? You could say, I had a horrific day, which means very, very bad. Or you can describe an event that was horrific. That was very, very bad. When I saw Will Smith slap Chris Rock, that was horrific. So you can say, I had a horrific day. All right, let's move on. Appearing on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, he said, I was going through something that night, you know? Now, our he is Will Smith. So just remember that through the story, he, unless said otherwise, is Will Smith. I was going through, so I is Will Smith. I was going through something that night, you know? So he's describing what happened that night when he slapped the comedian Chris Rock, that horrific night. I was going through something. To go through something. This is an expression, And we use this say to experience something difficult in our lives. And we use this more as a general expression when we don't really want to specify what it is. So if somebody asks you, what's wrong? You seem upset. You can just say, I'm going through a lot right now. I'm going through a lot right now. And that's just general, but it lets the person know you're experiencing something difficult. Now, they might follow up and say, well, what? Tell me more. And then you can say, I lost my job. My car was in an accident. My mom got sick. So you can list the difficult things in your life. So we use this as a general statement. What's wrong? I'm going through a lot right now. I'm going through a lot right now. Now notice it's our verb to be. Not our verb to be. Our verb is go. So that's the verb you're going to conjugate. Now here it's in the past continuous. That's why we have I was going. I was going. And here it's in the present continuous. I'm going, because you're experiencing the difficulty right now. Not that justifies my behavior at all. So Will Smith is saying the fact he was experiencing something difficult, that's not an excuse. If something justifies something, it's an excuse. It says it's okay that I slapped him because I was going through something. But he's saying that doesn't justify it. That's not an excuse. So you can think of this as an excuse. But remember, they're using it in the negative, an excuse. Not that justifies my behavior. It's not an excuse. Smith added that there were many nuances and complexities to it, but added, I lost it. I lost it. Now notice here, I lost it. What do you think that it is? I lost it. What? What did he lose? His keys, his wallet? No. When we use this in a general sense, I lost it, and I know what the context of the story is. He slapped someone. I know that it means his sense of control over himself, his emotions, his actions. I lost it. So we use this in the sense, I lost it yesterday in the meeting. So maybe you were in this meeting and your coworker said she couldn't finish the project and you lost it. What do you mean you couldn't finish the project? That's unacceptable. And you get really, really angry. You lose control of your emotions, your actions. You get taken over by the emotion. Maybe the bottled emotion, your bottled anger, your bottled rage. So I lost it. This is an expression. Hopefully you don't have to use it too often because it's not a positive expression. So to lose it, this means to lose control over your emotions, your actions as well, because you might just start yelling at your coworker, but you didn't really want to. You feel really bad after, but in that moment, you just couldn't control it. You lost control. Smith stormed the stage at the Hollywood Awards ceremony after Rock made a joke about Smith's wife Jada's shaved head. Woo, that's kind of a tongue twister. She has the hair loss condition, alopecia. Now notice how in the article they explain what alopecia is, because it's not a very common condition. They explain it's a hair loss condition. And it's a hair loss condition for women because men, unfortunately, lose their hair. And we call that bald, to be bald, to be bald, to be bald. This describes a man with no head hair, right? To be bald. But we don't usually associate that with women. So there's a condition when women lose their hair, it's called alopecia. Now, I want to point out these apostrophe S's. In this case, the apostrophe S is used to show possession. So, Smith's wife, the wife belongs to Smith, to Will Smith. And then they're saying her name, Jada. That's his wife's name, Jada. Now, but the shaved head belongs to Jada. So that's why there's an apostrophe S. The shaved head belongs to Jada. And shaved head is when you would go like this and then you get rid of all your hair. That would be a shaved head. I believe it looks like his head is shaved here. So he would go like this and then the hair is very close to his scalp. That's a shaved head. Now, very common for men, but not that common for women. And the comedian Chris Rock, he made a joke about Will Smith's wife's shaved head. So shaved head. We talked about what this is. Shaved head. Hurt people hurt people. I understand how shocking that was for people, he told Noah. Noah is the TV show host. Remember, Will Smith went on The Daily Show with the host Trevor Noah. So Will Smith is saying this to the TV show host Noah. I understand how shocking that was for people. So shocking. This is a great adjective. Just look at my face right now. That is shocking. What? So when you receive news and it causes you to go, what? You lost your job? What? But shocking is generally used in a negative context because we might go, in more of a positive, you just got engaged? That's amazing. But that's more surprise, which can be a more positive emotion, but generally shocking. When we describe something as shocking, there's a negative emotion in there. So when Will Smith slapped the comedian, imagine what the audience did. They would have gone, shocking. How shocking that was. I was gone. That was a rage that had been bottled for a really long time. So again, that emotion, it's inside and you're not letting it out. You're not expressing your emotion. So because we've seen this for a few times, we do have some common expressions. Generally, we say you shouldn't bottle your emotions. Sometimes we add the optional preposition up to create a phrasal verb, to bottle up. You shouldn't bottle up your emotions, which means you shouldn't keep your emotions inside of you. You should express them. So to express your emotion is when you might say to someone, hey, you hurt my feelings today, or I felt really sad today, instead of just keeping it inside of you and not expressing it, bottling it up inside of you. He said he also understood the pain he had caused and recalled the reaction of his 9-year-old nephew that night. So Will Smith's 9-year-old nephew watched the awards ceremony and saw his uncle slap someone. And the reaction is when you go, and that's the shock. That could be the reaction. Now, nephew This describes a boy. It's used for males, and it's your sibling's child. So your sibling's child. Your sibling's male child. It has to be for a male. Now notice I have my apostrophe S because the child belongs to your sibling. And sibling is your brother or sister. Sibling is gender neutral. It can be for brother or sister. It does not matter. Sibling. But nephew is only used for the male child of your sibling. Now, we have a separate word for the female child. Do you know what that is? Your sibling's female child. This is niece. Niece. Your sibling's female child. Niece. So you might have a niece and a nephew, or just a nephew, or just a niece. He's the sweetest little boy, Smith said. We came home and he had stayed up late to see his Uncle Will, and we're sitting in my kitchen and he's on my lap and he's holding the Oscar and he's just like, "Why did you hit that man, Uncle Will?" Oh, that's really sad. Why did you hit that man? Now, hit can be a slap. It's the same thing. So when I slap you, I would never do that. When I slap someone, I also hit them. It's the same thing. But hit is more general. So this is also hit, but this is also called a punch. So hit is a category, and then within that category, you have a slap, you have a punch, and other forms as well. So we have, I'll just write the ones I shared. So we have slap. This is when your hand is open. I don't necessarily like teaching these violent words. Hopefully you don't use them, but I guess you'll see them on movies and stuff. Slap. And then punch is when your fist is closed. Punch. It was a mess. So to describe something as a mess, this is a negative. It's saying, well, imagine your room. You might know this from a room in your house. Your kitchen is a mess. There's things everywhere. It's the opposite of clean. So we use this to describe a situation that is the opposite of an ideal situation. That's how I would describe it. It being the situation. So the situation, in this case, the incident at the Oscars when he slapped someone, this situation was a mess. So it's the opposite of ideal. Opposite of ideal, which is a good situation, right? So I might say, the meeting was a mess. The meeting was a mess, which describes the meeting as negative. Many negative things happened, but you would have to ask me what happened because it's not clear. So it's just a general, non-specific term to say that something negative happened, but you have to say why. What happened? And then you could explain the client lost it when we told her we're over budget. Remember we talked about to lose it. The client could not control her emotions or her actions. What do you mean you're over budget? This is unacceptable. And the client lost it. So the meeting was a mess. You can also use this for a room in your house. The kitchen, my kitchen is a mess. Now, in this case, it's saying it's dirty or not organized. That would be the definition of when you describe a room as a mess, dirty or not organized. The interview on the late night US TV talk show was the first time Smith had been publicly challenged about the attack. Smith told Noah he understood the often quoted theory that hurt people hurt people. Discussing the background to his Oscars assault, the actor said it was a lot of things. It was the little boy that watched his father beat up his mother, All of that just bubbled up in the moment. That's not who I want to be. So to beat someone up, this means to violently attack someone. So it has a very negative meaning, especially when we're talking about a father violently attacking a mother, right? So to violently attack. And you can do that obviously by hitting someone, slapping someone, punching someone. To violently attack. Now notice it's a phrasal verb, to beat up. So we have this preposition up is formed with the verb beat, which you conjugate, and then you add the preposition up. Okay, to bubble up. Think back to when our emotions were bottled up, right? They're inside, you're not expressing them. Now imagine this is a fizzy drink, like Coca-Cola or Sprite or something like that. If I shake it, and that's Coke, when I open this, what's going to happen? If I shake a carbonated drink and I open it, it's going to explode. That is the meaning of bubble up. Because remember, your emotions are bottled up, but then they bubble up. They all come to the surface at once. So it's another way of saying explode. All of that just bubbled up, so you can say exploded in that moment. And notice, bubble up is also a phrasal verb. We have our verb bubble and our preposition up. That's not who I want to be. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Will Smith. Smith has opened up before about growing up in an abusive home. So an abusive home, this is a home where you either witness violence, like he witnessed his father beat up his mother, or he also could have received violence himself. So it's possible that his father also beat him up. That is what we would describe an abusive home. Now, grow up. I find a lot of students notice or know how to use this, but often I see mistakes because they forget that it's a phrasal verb. You need the verb grow and the preposition up. So when you grow up in a home, or you can grow up in a specific city, that means that is where you were raised. That's where you were a child, and then you became older and older and older and became an adult. So you might say, I live in Florida now, but I grew up in Texas. So this means I spent most of my time when I was a child and when I was becoming an adult, that time when I grew up, I spent it in Texas. Now remember, our verb is grow, so this is in the past simple. I grew up in Texas. Don't forget that preposition up. Now, the last thing I will share with you is our phrasal verb open up, to open up. So to open up about something is when you share information about a negative or simply a personal event in your life. So Will Smith is saying he bottled up his emotions. He kept them inside, but then eventually he decided to open up. He decided to share that information. So maybe he told his close friends. Maybe he told a therapist even, or he told some family members about the abuse that he experienced as a child. So he shared that personal information. So that is another great phrasal verb. So now you have a lot of new vocabulary from this article. I am going to read this article from start to finish so you can focus on the pronunciation uninterrupted. So I'll do that now. Will Smith says bottled rage led him to slap Chris Rock at the Oscars. Will Smith has said his bottled rage led him to slap comedian Chris Rock on stage at the Oscars in March. The actor has been interviewed for the first time since the incident, which he described as a horrific night. Appearing on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, he said, "I was going through something that night, you know? Not that justifies my behavior at all." Smith added that there were many nuances and complexities to it, but added, I lost it. Smith stormed the stage at the Hollywood Awards ceremony after Rock made a joke about Smith's wife Jada's shaved head. She has the hair loss condition alopecia. Hurt people hurt people. I understand how shocking that was for people, he told Noah. I was gone. That was a rage that had been bottled for a really long time. He said he also understood the pain he had caused and recalled the reaction of his 9-year-old nephew that night. He's the sweetest little boy, Smith said. We came home and he had stayed up late to see his Uncle Will. And we're sitting in the kitchen and he's on my lap and he's holding the Oscar and he's just like, "Why did you hit that man, Uncle Will?" It was a mess. The interview on the late-night U.S. TV talk show was the first time Smith had been publicly challenged about the attack. Smith told Noah he understood the often quoted theory that hurt people hurt people. Discussing the background to his Oscars assault, the actor said, "It was a lot of things. It was the little boy that watched his father beat up his mother, you know? All of that just bubbled up in that moment. That's not who I want to be." Smith has opened up before about growing up in an abusive home.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
Should cats be allowed on airplanes? So this is an opinion-based article, and the topic is cats on airplanes. Now, let's say you are going to provide an answer to this question, because it's a question, right? So if you want to sound more advanced, more professional, you can add an opinion word. You can say, "in my opinion," and then you can state your opinion. Cats should or shouldn't be allowed on airplanes. So you can say, "in my opinion." That's a very common one. You can also say, "from my perspective." Now notice, it's from my perspective. In my opinion, from my perspective. These are the two most common opinion words that you can use. You could also say simply, I think. I think that cats should or shouldn't be allowed on airplanes. Now notice here, I included that. A lot of students get confused about when you need to use that and when you don't. Generally, in written English, we include that. I think that cats should. Generally, you can absolutely just say, I think cats should. Now, in spoken English, we generally do not include it just to make it shorter. And we say, I think cats should. So if you're writing, you can include it. It's more common. But if you're speaking, it's more common to omit it, exclude it. So here are some opinion words you can start adding to your speech. You can start right now and share your opinion about cats on airplanes in the comment of this video and use in my opinion or from my perspective. They will both help you sound very advanced. All right, let's continue on. At the Bogota airport, as passengers were placing their carry-ons, laptops, and purses in bins, inching their way on the conveyor belt for inspection. Okay, let's stop here. Carry-ons. This is absolutely must know for travel vocabulary. Most commonly planes, but you can also use this on trains, buses, most likely boats as well. Now, a carry-on is simply a bag that you carry on to the airport, onto the airplane. Excuse me, not airport, airplane. Now, a suitcase is generally larger and you would check that. So when you get to the airport, you check your suitcase and it goes under the plane. But then you take your smaller suitcases, your smaller bags onto the airplane with you. You carry it onto the plane. So here on Google Images, you can see the carry-on bags. Now, this right here that this man is opening, this is called the overhead bin, the overhead bin. And your bag must fit in the overhead bin or go under your seat in order for it to be a carry-on bag. So let me just write that here. So overhead bin, so your carry-on bag or suitcase must fit in the overhead bin or under your seat. And then we have larger suitcases. Larger suitcases are called checked bags or luggage, and they go under the plane. So they do not go on the plane with you, they go under the plane. All right. Now let's move on and look at this. Inching their way. So an inch is a very small amount. So if I say I'm inching my way, it means I'm making slow progress. So if you said, I'm inching my way towards the exit, it means the line is going very slowly. So you could use that when you're at a grocery store or when you're going through security at the airport. So you might say, I inched my way through security and it took me almost 1 hour. So if you use inch my way, the person understands you're making progress slowly. All right, one item stood out. This is a great phrasal verb, to stand out. And this means to be noticeable, to stand out, to be noticeable. So it's something that you notice more than other things. So let's say I have these two black pens And maybe I'll take this one, this purple one, because it's darker, right? And then I can take this one. Well, if I get rid of this one, this is a better example. If I have these 3 pens, which one, in your opinion, from your perspective, which one stands out? Stands out. Which one is more noticeable? Well, the yellow one stands out, obviously, because it's a bright color. So this item in all the suitcases, this one item was more noticeable because there was a cat in the suitcase. That's why it stood out. One item stood out, was more noticeable. It was a cat, and its owner was putting it into a cabin-ready case. So a cabin is what I showed you in the picture. That's where all the passengers go when they're on a plane. They just call that the cabin. So that cat is going on the plane. Okay, let me just write out that example sentence with the yellow pen for you. The yellow pen stood out. So remember, this is a phrasal verb. You need your verb stand, which you conjugate. In this case, it's conjugated in the past simple. And then you need your preposition out. The yellow pen stood out. For most travelers, this would hardly be noticeable. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. Okay, let's take a look here. Hardly. This is an adverb. Hardly be noticeable. When you use hardly, it means a small amount. So for most people, they wouldn't notice the cat. It's a small amount that they would notice. So not very much, a small amount. There's another word that means the exact same thing, another adverb. You could also say hardly or barely. Hardly, barely. They mean the same thing in this specific context, a small amount. This would barely be noticeable. This would hardly be noticeable. And remember, instead of be noticeable, you can say stand out. This would hardly stand out. This would barely stand out. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. So just like your phone rings, right? That's the verb we use, to ring, when you get a phone call. Well, that's the verb we use with alarms. Roo, roo, roo. That's ring. The alarm rings, and rang is just in the past simple. Alarm bells rang. I am severely allergic to cats, vulnerable to allergic asthma, and a cat was going to be sharing my cabin during the 6-hour Air Canada flight. Now remember, cabin is just used to describe the interior of the plane. That's it. So the interior of the plane, they call it a cabin. I don't know why. Interior of the plane. So it's where you sit, where your bags are, where the pilot is, everything on the inside of the plane. All right, what else? Oh, severely. So severely, this is an adverb, and it's saying to a large degree. So remember, hardly was small, but then severely is to a large degree. So in certain contexts, you could think of them as opposites. So this is to a large degree. To a large degree. All right, let's move on here. Why are cats allowed? Yes, dogs are also permitted in the cabin, yet twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs, according to the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. Let's take a look at yet, because I noticed they also used it here, yet for me. So yet. Yet is one of those words in English that has many different meanings depending on the context. And that's why it's so useful to study from articles, because you see the context that the word is being used. In this specific context, yet is being used as a conjunction. It's a conjunction. And it has the same meaning as but or however. So it's used to show a contrast. So here, let's look at our first example. Most travelers wouldn't notice a cat. I would notice a cat. Do you see the contrast? Most travelers would not. I would. So we have a yes and a no. There's a contrast. We use yet to help us transition from the one contrast point to the other contrast point. So you could equally say, but for me, however for me, yet for me, in this specific context. And it's the same thing here. So cats are allowed, dogs are allowed, but twice as many people are allergic. Yet, so we're setting up another contrast and we're using yet as a conjunction. Now, just as a reminder, all of these notes are available as a PDF download, so you can look in the description of this video to get this download. Let's continue on. Yet, twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs. Here, they chose to use as to dogs. Honestly, I would say than. So we have twice as many people are allergic to cats than dogs. That's what I would say, than dogs. And you're probably more familiar with that wording. So for example, more people buy dogs than cats. More people fly than travel by bus, for example. So just showing you that contrast, that comparison with then. All right, let's continue on. Dangers of exposure. So what is a cat allergic passenger to do? So this person is allergic to cats. They get a reaction, but someone is taking a cat on the plane and they might be quite close to each other. So they're asking for advice. What is that person to do? And this is the advice. Take medications that help prevent symptoms, advises Randolph. So notice here, advises. This is being used as our verb. And the noun form of advise, we can use advice, which is the noun. What advice do you have for me? Because this person is asking for advice. What advice do you have for me? And I can say, I advise you to take medication. Advise, advice. So notice the pronunciation difference. Advice, advise. Advice, advise. This is our noun and this is our verb. Spelling difference and pronunciation difference as well. This includes a non-drowsy antihistamine taken an hour before the flight and 2 puffs of a rescue inhaler 15 minutes before boarding. So drowsy. Drowsy is when you feel sleepy or tired. Feel sleepy or tired. Sleepy, tired. But when you say non-drowsy, it makes it negative because a lot of medication makes you feel sleepy or tired. It makes you drowsy. So a lot of medication will say on their label, do not drive after taking medication because it may make you drowsy, which means sleepy. But generally, drowsy is the vocabulary choice when we're talking specifically about medication. Now, if I had a long day at work, or if I didn't sleep very well, I wouldn't say I feel drowsy because drowsy implies the result of some sort of medication because we use it with medication. So if you're just talking about working hard or not sleeping well, you would use tired or sleepy. I feel tired. I feel sleepy. I am or I feel. Either one of those is fine. I am, I feel tired or sleepy. But if you're talking specifically about medication, then you can use drowsy. All right, so that's the advice, which is a noun. Let's continue on. A mask used to protect against COVID-19 could help prevent the dander from getting into your airways. Dander, that is something from the cat's fur. So little particles from the cat's fur is called dander. And that's generally why people are allergic to cats. It's the dander on their fur. Airways is, of course, just how you get air into your body is through your airways. So your nose is one of your airways and your mouth, your throat, is another one of your airways. So how you get air into your body. Now notice how they're using could as our modal verb because could is used to show possibility or potential. Possibility or potential. So it's not saying that it will help you. Will is a more of an absolute. This will work. It sounds 100% certain. This could work. It's just a possibility. It's also possible that it won't work. So could is used to show possibility. So this medicine could make you drowsy. Could, there's a possibility, the potential, and that's a modal verb. And remember, we always have grammatically, we always have modal plus base verb. So you don't change your verb that comes next. It's always the base verb. And could doesn't change either. This medicine could make you drowsy. Let's continue on. Is anything being done? Is there any progress in at least making the public and the airline industry aware of the cat allergy problem? We have been trying to raise awareness of cat allergy in cabins since 1985, notes Tanya Winders, president of the Virginia-based Global Allergy Airways Patient Platform, an 82-member network of patient-based groups, including the Asthma and Allergy Network. Winders points to the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Carrier Access Act, which is supposed to protect people with disabilities, including severe allergies. But the only protection the website offers is advice. Choose an airline that does not allow cats in cabins. Call ahead and check with your doctor. All right, so here, this is the advice. We have our noun here, and you can see those 3 points. That's what she advises using our verb. That's what she advises you do. Now let's go back here. There were a lot of very long names. Those are just the names of these specific groups or the specific act. You can just ignore those pretty much. What can I show you here? We have raise awareness. Raise is the verb you would use. You can also use increase awareness. Increase awareness, but raise is a very common verb with the word awareness. So you can add that to your vocabulary. Now notice we have since 1985, and when I see the word since, I can look back and I already know that my sentence is going to be in the present perfect. Now, what verb tense do we have here? We have been trying. We've been trying. We've been trying. This is the present perfect continuous. Present perfect continuous. And it shows an action that started in the past and continues until now. So when did this action start? Well, it started in 1985. So that was the start point, 1985, and then it's continued all the way until now, and it will continue until some unknown time in the future. So not too much on this last page because it was mainly those long groups, those long organizations. So what I'll do now is I will read the article from start to finish so you can focus on my pronunciation and you can imitate my pronunciation as well. And remember, you can also look in the description of this video to get the link that summarizes all the notes I made. So now I'll read the article from start to finish. Should cats be allowed on airplanes? At the Bogota airport, as passengers were placing their carry-ons, laptops, and purses in bins, inching their way on the conveyor belt for inspection, one item stood out. It was a cat, and its owner was putting it into a cabin-ready case. For most travelers, this would hardly be noticeable. Yet for me, alarm bells rang. I am severely allergic to cats, vulnerable to allergic asthma, and a cat was going to be sharing my cabin during the 6-hour Air Canada flight. Why are cats allowed? Yes, dogs are also permitted in the cabin, yet twice as many people are allergic to cats as to dogs, according to the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. Dangers of exposure. So what is a cat allergic passenger to do? Take medications that help prevent symptoms, advises Randolph. This includes a non-drowsy antihistamine taken an hour before the flight and 2 puffs of a rescue inhaler 15 minutes before boarding. A mask used to protect against COVID-19 could help prevent the dander from getting into your airways. A HEPA air filter, which most airplanes say they use, could also help, but not if a cat is sitting next to you. Is anything being done? Is there any progress in at least making the public and the airline industry aware of the cat allergy problem? We have been trying to raise awareness of cat allergy in cabins since 1985, notes Tonya Winders, president of the Virginia-based Global Allergy Airways Patient Platform, an 82-member network of patient-based groups, including the Asthma and Allergy Network. Winders points to the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Carrier Access Act, which is supposed to protect people with disabilities, including severe allergies. But the only protection the website offers is advice. Choose an airline that does not allow cats in cabins. Call ahead and check with your doctor.
Amazing job with this lesson. Now, what was your favorite new word from this lesson? Leave that in the comments below and leave an example sentence practicing your new vocabulary. And if you found this lesson helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head to my website and get your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying!